Is the Sonos Beam G2 with a sub-mini and a pair of Era 100 speakers really the upgrade your living room deserves? Or is it just another pricey bundle you can skip? Who should dive in, who should walk away, and does the cost make sense for a typical family that watches a bit of Netflix, plays a casual game, and wants music in the kitchen? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first heard about this 3-piece bundle, my immediate hesitation was the price tag versus the real benefit. A soundbar alone can turn a TV's tinny output into something you barely notice, but add a subwoofer and 2 rear speakers, and the math gets complicated. You're essentially buying a mini theater system that promises panoramic soundstage for a space that might only be 200 square feet. The question I kept asking myself was, will I actually hear the difference? Or will I end up with a sleek box that sits idle because my TV and room don't support it? Let's start with the Beam Gen 2. This isn't the first Sonos soundbar, but it does bring a couple of upgrades that matter in day-to-day use. The biggest practical win is the built-in voice assistant integration. Alexa, Google Assistant, or Siri are all available, so you can ask for the weather, change the volume, or fire off a smart home command without lifting the remote. In my apartment, that means I can dim the lights and lower the TV volume with a single "Hey Google, movie time" while the soundbar automatically switches to the Dolby Atmos mode. The transition feels natural because the Beam is always on the same Wi-Fi network as the rest of my Sonos ecosystem. There's no Bluetooth pairing dance. But the Beam also has a hidden trade-off. It leans heavily on your network stability. If your Wi-Fi drops for a moment, you'll notice a tiny hiccup in the audio stream, especially when you're streaming a high-bitrate movie. I tested it during a rainstorm, and the occasional stutter was noticeable, though the system recovered quickly. If you have a solid router placed centrally, that risk is minimal, but in a house with spotty coverage the experience can be less seamless. Now, the Sub-Mini. Sonos markets it as a compact, powerful bass module. In practice, it adds a pleasant thump to action movies and a richer low end to music tracks. The real-world test came when I played the latest Marvel film. The explosions felt fuller, and the bass didn't overwhelm the dialogue. That's an important point. The Sub-Mini is tuned to complement the Beam without drowning out speech, which is a common complaint with larger, boomy subwoofers. However, if you're looking for the deep rumble that you'd get from a dedicated home theater sub, you'll be disappointed. The unit is small enough to hide behind a couch, but that also limits its cone size, and the bass rolls off around 70 Hz. For most sitcoms and pop music, that's fine, but for bass-heavy genres like EDM, the impact is modest. The 2 Era 100 speakers are the piece that makes this bundle feel like a genuine surround sound system. They're designed to sit behind the listening position and project ambient details that make a movie feel three-dimensional. I set them up on bookshelf stands behind my sofa, and the first thing I noticed was the sense of space in a horror film. The creaking floorboards seemed to come from the left, while a distant whisper appeared from the right. In a game of Valorant, the positional audio helped me locate enemies more accurately than I ever got from stereo headphones alone. That said, the Era 100's performance is highly dependent on placement. If you have a narrow hallway or a small studio apartment where there isn't room for 2 rear speakers, the benefit shrinks dramatically. In those cases you might be better off with a pair of bookshelf speakers wired directly to the Beam's lineout, if you have that option, or just rely on the Beam's built-in virtual surround. The Era 100 also requires the Sonos app to calibrate the room, and the calibration assumes you have an unobstructed rear listening area. If you place a large bookshelf or a couch right behind the speakers, you'll lose some of the intended effect. One of the biggest concerns for everyday buyers is ecosystem lock-in. Sonos devices speak the same language, which is great if you already own a Sonos speaker in the bedroom or kitchen. They'll all sync instantly. If you're starting from scratch, however, you're committing to a platform that doesn't play nicely with non-Sonos hardware. The Beam only accepts HDMI ARC or eARC, so you can't simply drop it into an older TV that only has an optical output without an adapter, and the adapter adds latency that can ruin lip sync. That's a hidden cost that many people overlook until they try to connect it to a legacy setup. So, who should buy this bundle? If you have a mid-sized living room, a TV that supports HDMI eARC, a reliable Wi-Fi network, and you already enjoy Sonos for music in other rooms, this set is A.